And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond, tuning in to RBLR Sports for the Rowdies show. I think, Carlos, we need to switch this up. We were talking a bit earlier. Do we need to be Rowdies Land? You said Rowdies Family. I kind of like the family.
I like Rowdies Family.
Yeah,
I think I it brings a good picture of Al Lang Stadium to me in my mind. You know what I mean? Nice 7,000 person stadium, good crowd, people I recognize every week. I like family. I think it's a good word.
I think it's probably an intimate enough atmosphere for that. Like, we are all literally just, very close by, hugging and stuff when the Rowdies score. I think that it's probably fair. We'll keep workshopping that, and we'll get back to all of our listeners on whether or not we're a Rowdies Land, a Rowdies Family. Maybe we are a Rowdies Universe. Who can say? But Carlos, how are you doing this week? This week before Gasparilla.
James, I'm doing well. I miss Gasparilla up here in DC. It's cold. It's rainy. It's terrible. The weather sucks. It's the worst. But other than that, you know how it is, James. We're doing great. It's cold Thursday. The Lightning play in a little bit. My roommate's from Boston, and we're playing against the Bruins. So this will either be a really good weekend or a really bad weekend for me. Either way, it's going to be a great time, and I'm just looking forward to talking about what some of this news we've been hinting at about all week and all these signings and everything. Just really, really fun, exciting players that are new to some of us and old-ish. To the Rowdies family, Rowdies Nation, Rowdies Universe. So I'm excited to talk about these, James, and I know you are as well. But again, before that, how are you doing? What's going on down there? What's the Gasparilla prep looking like?
Yeah, we are getting ready for Gasparilla, and I think that what I did last year is I had one of those backpack bladders that you have, and I had one that was water and one that was wine. So I think that I might keep up with that tradition. I'll be down Bayshore Avenue with my now wife. I have been married this past weekend. So
some minor news.
Yeah, exactly. Just a little bit of news there, but we will get into the sports of it all now. We've got to get into that aspect of things, right, Carlos? We have quite a bit to talk about, not just with the planned topic of the night, because we did write out a whole script, but in so doing, we were going to record Tuesday like we usually do. I was at an Airbnb celebrating, and so unfortunately I had no Wi-Fi there. With that being said, we had to push it to Thursday. And Carlos, we were bombarded with news this week. So I think that it'd be best if we save that news for the end, and you and I have a lot to talk about there. We'll go through what all of it means, but
so much to talk about.
Yeah. But beforehand, let's actually get through the show that you and I had planned on. I think that that'll be a good place to start. So, like I said, the Rowdies have made some important signings to fill out our roster for this upcoming season. But Carlos, I think that, I was looking around wondering what's kind of going on with the rest of the league. Where are the other teams at this point in the preseason? I think that this week we should take a look around and see what everybody else looks like, and in particular, what that might mean for us and how it could impact us in 2023. So that is going to be the main topic for this week's show. Before we get to the big Rowdies news, tons of signings, tons of players. Everyone's going to be really happy with the guys that we signed. So please stay tuned for that as well. And of course, please follow RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And please like and subscribe to our podcast on all major podcast platforms. Now, Carlos, let's actually dive in. We've been preambling for a while here. Let's actually talk about what the Rowdies are looking at for this upcoming season. So there are a lot of big signings around the league. If you could just start us off with these main attackers, I think that would be one of the more important things that we need to focus on, because attackers are they're one of the most important parts of soccer.
The headline guys, right, James? I mean, these are the guys that get the news pieces, like the big tweets, the highlights. These are the guys that you're going to be scoring a lot of goals, all the videos and stuff on Twitter throughout the season. I think for obviously the one that is going to haunt us for a bit here is Sebastian Guenzati to Indy 11. I don't want to spend too much time on that because we all know how much that means to us, how much that means to Indy. and how much of a help he's going to be to their team. So, of course, the home opener has to be against none other than them. So that'll be a blast. But of course, you have Cicerone to Sacramento, another huge pickup, another transfer in the league. Milo Youssef to Tulsa. One that's kind of near and dear to my heart, Derek Dodson to the Charleston Battery. Derek Dodson, the Georgetown alum. Really good pickup. A guy that was on my personal wish list to come down to Tampa Bay. Charleston Battery and Lee Cohen are now arch nemesis, going behind our back and stealing him for Charleston Battery. Tyler Patcher to Birmingham Legion is another huge pickup. We know that name. We know the damage he can do. So another good pickup for Birmingham after losing a lot of players, seemingly a lot of players to us, James. I know everybody on Twitter, the Birmingham Legion Twitter has been kind of complaining, kind of worried because they're not making a lot of signings at all. And it seems like they're losing more players than they're bringing in. But this is a huge pickup for them, and it's going to make them competitive in the league no matter what. Tyler Patcher is a huge addition for them. Nico Hansen, another big name, moving to San Antonio FC. You have Handwalla Bwana at the Battery as well, another big pickup for Lee Cohen's team. And Kamarni Smith to San Antonio FC as well, if I'm not mistaken. Finally, last one you threw in here, James. Personally, I'm not familiar with this name. If you want to tell us a bit more about what this means for Lee Cohen's Battery. Tristan Traeger? It's the Charleston Battery. That is the only name I'm a bit unfamiliar with, James. Do you want to key us in on what that signing means to Charleston?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are, like you said, a couple of big names on here. I think most of them are actually big names from kind of out of college, like Derek Dodson, in fact. So Milo Youssef to Tulsa, he was at Marshall University for the past couple of years. He actually won the NCAA championship with them, unexpected because Marshall doesn't really have a big soccer history. So that was a very good signing. He's an attacker.
That was a great story.
Yeah, they were actually. But he's an attacker who will often come in off the wings, and I think that Tulsa made a pretty good pickup. I knew that he wouldn't get drafted by MLS because he's probably not good enough to earn that international roster spot that MLS teams covet so much. But at the USL Championship level, he's going to be very good, and I think that we're going to have to keep an eye on him at least over the course of 2 games, if not more, this season. Yeah, Tyler Patcher, you mentioned, he's not actually one of the college kids, but deadly, absolutely deadly. Nico Hansen to San Antonio and Kamarni Smith to San Antonio. Both of those are college guys. Nico Hansen from several years ago. Kamarni Smith was at Clemson just 2 years ago, I believe it was. And he also won an NCAA college championship, I'm pretty sure, with Clemson.
Yeah.
Those are 2 very good players. And Kamarni Smith, actually, I imagine will end up playing quite a bit like Milo Youssef, where he's going to be out on the wing and kind of trying to cut in, use some speed, use some dribbling prowess. And I know that we're going to have to keep an eye on both of those guys. Nico Hansen is another dribbler from the wing. Yeah, it's going to be, I'm not sure if those are necessarily starters right off the bat. I feel like at least one of them actually will end up being a starter, but between the 2 of them, those are 2 very good pieces to have on the wing and 2 very good pieces if you're going to use them as depth. I mean, my God,
yeah,
that's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's a San Antonio team that just keeps getting stronger.
Exactly.
That's a team that we're going to have to keep watching out for, like always now.
It is a case of the rich getting richer in that particular instance. But then to a case of the poor getting richer, if we look at the last couple of seasons. Yeah, Charleston Battery have signed Handwalla Bwana and Tristan Traeger, which is how I think that it's pronounced. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that it's Tristan Traeger.
That seems right.
Yeah, these 2 guys are pretty good stories, both of them. So Handwalla Bwana is actually a refugee who came to America, and he grew up in the Seattle area. He is from, I believe, originally Kenya, and then he grew up in the Seattle Sounders system. He went to college, and he actually signed a homegrown academy contract with them. So he moved on to their MLS team before he graduated from college, and he didn't quite make the grade at Seattle, so they sent him off to Nashville. Nashville, he was again right on the cusp of being, a regular player. I don't think that he quite made it there either, but he did spend some time on loan in the USL Championship, and he looked very good. So he's another one of these guys like Nico Hansen, Kamarni Smith, Milo Youssef, where he's going to be coming in off the wing, using some speed, using some dribbling ability. And I imagine that Handwalla Bwana is an immediate upgrade on anyone they had at Charleston Battery from last year, in all honesty. I think that he will lift
Oh,
that
yeah.
team quite a bit. Tristan Traeger, on the other hand, comes to them from Atlanta United's second team. So he went to college for Army, one of the, I believe, Golden Knights, if I'm not mistaken, Carlos.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was a very good attacking prospect at Army, and with his service duty, I guess, on the line, I don't know that he was the most attractive prospect to an MLS team, because I believe if you go to one of the service academies, I think that you do have to actually spend some time in the service. I don't know when it is.
Yeah.
And I believe that you can also have it, delayed. So at the time, or at this particular time, he will be playing professional soccer, and I think that he will be a very good upgrade for Charleston again. Where last year he was with Atlanta United, did pretty well, and I'm kind of sad to see all of these guys signing for Charleston, but this is not the last time, Carlos, that we are going to see them. They are going to be on this list quite a bit. So if you could take us through the midfielders on this list, then we'll keep moving forward.
Course. Charleston is going to be a really, really fun team to watch when they're not playing us, though, James. I'll tell you what.
I think that's a good way to put that.
Yeah. I'll be really, really excited to take them on early. If you recall, it's our second game of the season, if I'm not mistaken. And it's away to Charleston, so hopefully we can catch them before they gel together too much, because it's going to be a really, really new team. And again, there's some other names on here we're going to have to keep an eye on, including Chris Allen, first name off the bat to the Charleston Battery. Next big signing, Fede Varela to Phoenix Rising, as well as Speedy Williams to the Switchbacks. This is a name I want to focus on for a second here, because Speedy Williams was on my personal wish list as well. If you recall, a few episodes ago, I said this is a guy that I think would immediately make an impact for our Tampa Bay Rowdies. Unfortunate that we didn't pick him up, or again, it's kind of hard to get on the end of transfer rumors in this league. So who knows if there was an effort made. That being said, we did make a lot of great signings, and we'll talk about that later on. So I won't focus on that too much. But yeah, he's going to make a huge impact out there for Colorado. Jack Blake, a former Rowdy that we know is going to Indy 11, reuniting with former teammates in Sebastian Guanzotti, and I believe he was here with Juan Tejada as well briefly. Jack Blake was a really, really fun midfielder, really good box-to-box type guy. Can play defensively really, really well, can move up the ball really, really well, and obviously can rip a couple shots from distance really, really well. So he's going to be fun to watch. Indy, another team, kind of like Charleston, who's had, frankly, very poor seasons recently, putting together a team to watch. Joe Corona to San Diego as well, another big pickup. Siad Haji to Tulsa. Blake Bodley to San Diego are the last transfers, signings we'll mention here in the midfield. But lots of big names here, James. A couple names that I recognize a little less, and I'll throw over you to explain what they mean. But off the bat, again, Speedy Williams is one of those guys that's really, really, really big for any team he signs.
Yeah, I think that he's going to be a problem. Luckily, we will only be playing them one time this year, so that will be a little bit less of a problem for us. Joe Corona is one you mentioned. He is a former U.S. men's national team player. Not with a ton of caps, but, there are a lot of players over the course of, a 10-year cycle, let's say. It's pretty hard to get onto that team, and he managed to do it. Good for him. And he is from the San Diego area originally. So, he's obviously getting to the end of his career at this point with his age, I think being 32, 33, but no doubt that he will be an important player and somebody that we will have to keep an eye on. The rest of the players might be a little less unknown, and so we'll go through those a little bit. Chris Allen, I think that you mentioned him, Carlos. He came to Charleston Battery this offseason from Memphis. So if we do remember the games against Memphis, they were tough. They were tight games. Yeah. And he was one of the players who had a pretty big impact. So I think that is another immediate upgrade for Charleston Battery in their midfield. And I think that he's going to just make everything harder for us again, unfortunately. But, we knew that was going to happen wherever he wound up. Yeah. The next player I found on this list was a very interesting player. Phoenix Rising are going to be a team that we see on here quite a bit. And I am gonna, unfortunately, that's just the nature of a well-run club like Phoenix usually is. They're going to rebuild if they have an off year, and I think that that's kind of representative of what we're doing here. So Fede Varela is an Argentinian player who comes from the Bulgarian league, I believe. And he's had stints all around Europe at different top divisions, but, just not the ones that you're most familiar with. Like, he hasn't played in the Premier League, but he's played in the top division in Bulgaria, like I said. I think he's played...
A very competitive league, by the way.
Yeah.
It's a really good league.
I think he's played in places like Turkey and Malta, just kind of all over, but he's obviously got a very good pedigree. And I think at the USL Championship level, that's going to translate very well. So a very good pickup for Phoenix, and unfortunate for us, obviously, to be on the other side. Yeah. Saeed Haji and Blake Bodley are two players who did very well at the college level. And then when they signed to leave college early and join MLS, they were sent to teams that unfortunately didn't really seem to value them. So Saeed Haji was drafted by the San Jose Earthquakes. If you know anything about MLS, the San Jose Earthquakes are absolute crap. They're a dumpster fire. And the coach that's
the Loudoun United.
The coach that they've had the last 2 years, there are rumors that he was doing so poorly in his time that he wanted the ownership to cut him out of his contract, so he kind of sabotaged things. Is that actually what happened? Who can say? But regardless, that means the team was doing terribly. So very unfortunate situation for what I think is a very talented player, and he will come in as an attacking player to a wide midfielder, and we'll see exactly where. But somebody to keep an eye on, because Tulsa is another one that's trying to rebuild and actually form a team that can, compete pretty well. Blake Bodley, again, he went to the Portland Timbers Academy as a kid, then went to the University of Washington, if I'm not mistaken, joined the Portland Timbers senior team as a homegrown player. And Portland Timbers don't really play their kids. They just do not have a good reputation for that. So unfortunately, he had to leave. And I think that if he actually, goes a place where he will get some playing time, then he will do well. And San Diego is not afraid to play their kids. Landon Donovan still being in charge there. That's a good place to go if you are a younger guy and you're looking to get playing time. I think that he will have the chance to succeed. And if he does get that chance to succeed, I don't imagine that he's going to have as much of a problem doing so. I'm kind of worried to see, when we play him, but it's not necessarily the case that they've got the next, the next young superstar in their hands, but he's definitely going to be dangerous. And I think that we need to keep an eye out on him. And I hope for his sake that he does get a little more playing time. We'll see. Anyway, that is where I think the larger midfield signings kind of shape up to be. Carlos, could you take us through the defenders here, and we'll hit up on those next.
Yeah, and some interesting names here as well. The one we have listed here first, Justin Malou, I believe the Senegalese defender, coming over from MLS Next Pro to Tulsa. So he'll be making his debut in the USL Championship, Clemson Tiger product. Really, really good, producer, professional soccer players, Clemson University.
Yeah.
Declan Wynn at the Charleston Battery, I believe South African left back, moving from Detroit to Charleston. Again, I feel like I've said the term Charleston Battery here way too much. Lee Cohen, I can't express how much work he's doing here. Again, Richard Ballard to Detroit, and finally Eddie Monjoma to Phoenix. A couple of names there at the end I'm less familiar with. But again, just to reemphasize some of these big signings, I think Declan Wynn is the one that stands out to me the most personally. He had a really, really good season with Detroit. He's a guy that you would consistently notice on the field because he gets up the field well as a fullback. Obviously defends really, really well. So Lee Cohen doing really good work getting him to Charleston. Again, shaping up to be a dangerous team up and down the field, James.
Yeah, they are. I think that Declan Wynn is a player who showed his quality last year at Detroit City. And the fact that he goes again to Charleston Battery, we're going to have to keep an eye out. Now, there are a couple of good college players here. Justin Malou is another one of those that you said. He also was present for Clemson when they won the national championship, the NCAA national championship. So very good player. He was rumored for several years to be a Generation Adidas signing. Never happened for him. So instead, when he came to MLS, he didn't have quite all the perks and ultimately didn't make it. Drops down to this level where I'm very certain he's going to turn into a good player. Eddie Monjoma is another player like that. He was signed as an FC Dallas homegrown player after a very good career in the college soccer arena, and Just failed to make the grade at the MLS level, but MLS is a good level. We should keep an eye, or we should keep that in the back of our mind when we're talking about all of these guys. If you can make it at MLS level, you're going to be great in the USL Championship. If you can't quite make it, you're still going to be probably a very good player. Think about Forrest Lasso, obviously. Forrest Lasso was always on the cusp of MLS, and he's turned into one of our best players ever on the defensive side. So Eddie Benhoma is a bit of a right back, and I think that he will either compete with Darnell King out there, or he might move up the wing. It'll be interesting to see exactly where everything shakes out for Phoenix, but they're going to have, I think, pretty much almost a whole roster from top to bottom to try and work out. So we'll see how it does. Richard Ballard actually moves to Detroit City from the Miami down in South Florida. So good player, and I think that he is another player that just kind of helps shore up what was actually a very stingy defense in Detroit last season. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one shakes out as well. I'm not sure, quite what Detroit will have in terms of their attack. That has kind of yet to shake out in their signings, but they have most of their defenders back from last season, other than the aforementioned Declan Wynn. But Richard Ballard coming in shores things up even further, where they were already, like I said, very stingy. And it's all very interesting to see from afar exactly how these teams are looking at, where they're going to be. So, Carlos, if you could take us through these last two categories here, the keepers and coaches, I think that these are both going to be very important, actually.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. First name on the goalkeepers list we have here is Trey Muse to the Charleston Battery. Again, Trey Muse on contract from Loudoun United most recently. Strangely enough, was out on loan to Memphis. That's where we got to know him pretty well. Had a great season with Memphis. Makes you really question what Loudoun was doing, sending him out on loan for a full season to Memphis. But that's another question. That being said, he's out in Charleston now, going to make an immediate impact. Really, really talented goalie. And again, we got to know him pretty well in Eastern Conference. But we know what he can do. Adrian Zendejas to Miami. I believe he'll be on loan from Charlotte FC. This is a guy I know a little bit less about, but a guy who clearly has MLS quality, which is why he's under contract with Charlotte FC. And we'll see what he can do with Miami FC, with the Miami FC. Finally, a couple coaches to name here. Another Battery move here, James. Ben Pyramid to the Charleston Battery, and Stephen Glass to Memphis 901 FC. What do those last signings mean to you? What does these last moves mean to you, James? Because I think we can frankly say with some confidence that Ben Pyramid to the Battery is going to be a huge pickup as well for them. I'm kind of frankly getting tired about talking about Charleston, but I think it's worth mentioning because this is another big pickup for them.
Yeah, when Lee Cohen went to Charleston, we all knew what this was going to turn into, right? We all knew that this was going to be a team that we had to reckon with, and it was a month after the season ended that we were like, oh wow, they mean business, right?
Yeah.
Since then, they have only continued to strengthen, and one of the people that they needed to replace was the coach Connor Casey, former U.S. men's national team player who didn't have a lot of top level coaching experience prior to this. He was their coach last year. Obviously, they were another dumpster fire of a team. I don't think that Connor Casey was quite responsible for that, but you can't really go off of his record and say, he's worthy, let's say, of taking over a very good team. So they will cut that out. And instead of having him involved, they brought in one of the most impressive coaches in the USL over the last 2 years. Ben Pyramid has done an incredible job with Memphis, I would say, over that time. He has rebuilt them from, kind of like just a middling team to a team that nearly beat us on multiple occasions. And, obviously took us very close to the end of the Eastern Conference semifinals. So I think that with a little bit of luck, he would have been the coach who was facing Louisville City Eastern Conference final. But we ended up getting the actual good flip of the coin there. And Ben Pyramid instead moves on to Charleston and moves on to what I think is a much better situation for him, because he's going to have, a better general manager backing things up. Now, Stephen Glass, he replaces Ben Pyramid at Memphis. Stephen Glass has I shouldn't say good. He has a very accomplished record in USL Championship, because if you do remember that name, it was as the previous manager of Atlanta United 2. Now, Atlanta United 2, not a good team. I think that we can all agree with that. But you have to look at the players that they were using and realize that, really anything respectable there, that's pretty good. You're using a bunch of pre-college kids to fill out the roster at Atlanta United too. If you can accomplish anything, that's really well done. So he went from there actually to coach Aberdeen in the Scottish Premier League. Didn't work out, so now he's come back to USL, and he's actually at a team that will not just use 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and I'm interested to see how that works out for him.
Probably better than the other situation, if you ask me. Both really, really appealing jobs for both of these guys. I'm sure Ben Pierman is ecstatic with the situation in Charleston. It's a really, really appealing job for a coach of his quality. It's kind of like a fresh slate. I'd say it's generally lower pressure than some other jobs that you could come across.
Yeah.
You're talking about a team that, I don't know, it had like one of their worst seasons ever recently. So there's not a ton of expectation. At the same time, maybe there is with all these new signings, but it's an appealing job. And I'm really, really excited to see what he can do for a really good team and a really good historical club out there in Charleston.
Yeah, exactly. One last thing that I wanted to hit on were Canadian Premier League guys. So these might be names that you don't know, and that's perfectly fine, but they are interesting to keep an eye on because the Canadian Premier League versus the USL Championship, it's kind of interesting to see who would be the better team here or the better league here. I think that based on money, the USL Championship is the better team. We have higher salaries and people chase higher salaries. So if you're going to move up in the world, moving up is to the USL Championship. And I think that these kind of display that, in fact. One player moving to Tulsa is Brett Levis. He's a left back who, he had a pretty good record in the Canadian Premier League, but I think that what he's doing here is certainly strengthening Tulsa and also bolstering his own career and probably his own prospects financially, at least. Moses Dyer is also moving to Tulsa. He's actually from New Zealand originally. So congratulations to both of them on making the step to what I think will be just a better league for them with a little bit more competition. Ryan Telfer is a player who's moving to the Miami FC. I think that we're going to have to keep an eye on him. A bit of a tricky left winger from Canada, but has represented Trinidad and Tobago. And the last player on the list, I think, really proves that the USL Championship is the better league of the two. Daniel Crutzen actually played for Forge FC. If you know about the Canadian Premier League, Forge FC is by far the best team in that league. They have won 3 of 4 league championships that have occurred in the Canadian Premier League. So Daniel Crutzen makes what is probably a step up for him from the championship, the perennial champions of the Canadian Premier League, to Phoenix Rising. And I think that Phoenix are also showing that they mean business by taking a player who has quite a good pedigree in the sport of soccer and, saying we would like to come back and make sure that we are winning again this season.
Yeah, great points. And again, I think it's really, really important to focus on Phoenix a bit because, again, this is a club that regularly competes, is in the mix for the title. And it's clear, like you said, that they mean business. So exciting to see some of the transfers between, and I say between, it seems kind of one way-ish from CPL to USL because it's an interesting league up there, honestly. And I'm really, really excited to see how kind of this relationship develops going forward. It is a really, really new league. So, future's bright.
Absolutely. So with that, we will move on. But before we do, just want to say, of course, liking and subscribing is free. But if you think you might need some new threads coming up this year, you can support our little podcast just that little bit more by heading over to shop.rblrsports.com and checking out all the designs that we've got cooked up there. There will be a link in the description, and you can use the promo code COYR for 10% off. So please do check it out. And if you do, I think that you will find something you like. Now, Carlos, we will move on to our next segment. Yep. What does it mean for us?
That's what matters
for us as Rowdies fans. I'll get us going here. And I just want to start with, where the players are. I think that we named a lot of the big names. I think that have been shown to already, they secured a move in this offseason. There are a lot of players who will just bounce around the league doing pretty well, here and there. I think Alex Dixon is a good representation of that. If anybody doesn't know the name Alex Dixon, we've played him several times over the years. He has been all over this league. He was with Hartford last year, and he moved to Monterey Bay. Hartford and Monterey Bay are kind of middling teams, if maybe a little less than that. But he's probably going to be the best player on both of those rosters. So, that's kind of the player that you'll see a lot of these movements. But all of the players that Carlos and I went through, I think are going to be the ones that are just, a little bit more quality, and they move to teams that actually lift them up and make them, true contenders. So let's start getting into the teams that we think might be true contenders based on what we've seen here, Carlos. And if you could kick us off with that dreaded team that we've already talked about too much this evening.
The Charleston Battery. I'm gonna start adding "the" in front of them because they deserve it. Charleston Battery looks like they're building a really, really good team, James. That's all we can say. I mean, we can't really see for sure what that's going to look like until they step on the field, obviously. But it's clear that they mean business. This is a team that's going to try and make a really significant jump from where they were last year to contenders this year. And I think they can do it with the signings that we've been seeing, with the coach they brought in, with the front office that they've built. Lee Cohen means business, and I'm sure Charleston Battery has a really, really bright future in coming seasons.
And all I can do is wish them the worst of luck.
Exactly.
From my position here in Tampa Bay. The next thing that I wanted to mention, Phoenix are rebuilding. They are not only putting together what looks like a good team, literally in terms of their talent, but they're putting together a team that is going to be filled with people who are desperately trying to win every game that they can. Daniel Crutzen is a proven winner, regardless of where he comes from. The Canadian Premier League might be, like we said, a little bit lower quality than here, but he is going to be a very good defender, and I think that he's going to be difficult to beat. This Fede Varela that they've got, he's going to be very difficult to stop on the other side. So they're trying to make sure that they never have another season like last year again. And obviously this is the first year that they can put that out there. I think that they're in a good position to do that. So everybody should keep an eye out on Phoenix out west.
Easily. And staying out west, we'll go. Oh, wait. I say staying out west. Is Tulsa an Eastern Conference team now?
I believe they are this year, but so you know confusing. What? They are West. We can definitely admit that they are of the West.
I don't know what's going on with them, but anyway, now Eastern Conference team FC Tulsa is another team to look out for because it looks like they're rebuilding. We've mentioned a couple of their signings, but again, I think it's a little more difficult to see what that really means.
It's early.
Yeah, it's really, really early. You're Charleston. Again, this is Charleston. Comparing it with Charleston, Charleston's a team that is bringing in a lot of really quality signings. Comparing it with Tulsa's a team that's bringing in a few names that you really, really should watch out for. They're a team that's kind of in the middle of the pack. They're almost like, it's like they're almost going to break through every year, right? They kind of just sneak into the playoffs most seasons. Who knows? Maybe this is the offseason where they make that big jump. So we'll see what happens there. I don't know what that was. But yeah, that being said, really, really, really good potential there. And I'm just excited to see what they can do. No, I take that back. They're an Eastern Conference team now. I hope they do poorly as well. But they could be a good team to watch out for.
Exactly. Another team that we wanted to highlight is Colorado Springs. They are building on what was a very good year, and they have brought in some very good new signings. I think that is headlined, obviously, by Speedy Williams. He is one of the top players in the USL Championship. I'm honestly surprised that he's still in the USL Championship. When you look at players who have kind of hit the same heights as him, he is like a regular starter for the Jamaican national team, the senior Jamaican national team. When they bring in guys from the Premier League, he is also on the field with them. So I'm honestly shocked that he's still here and hasn't, made a move somewhere. I think that, we saw players moving abroad to Egypt last year. We saw players moving abroad to similar places. So I kind of figured that Speedy Williams of all of them might be one, but I guess not. And that is Colorado Springs' benefit. It is also to the detriment of every other team in this league. So they're going to be good. They're always going to be good, it seems. And he's going to help them out. I'm a little worried for, how all of those Western teams are looking, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's some serious potential. There really is. And Colorado Springs, I'm less worried about the Western Conference teams because it doesn't really matter until we see them, right? Matters to a much lesser extent. That being said, it's kind of fun to watch them build a team versus like watching a Charleston build a team because I can kind of watch their games with a little less pressure, right?
Yeah.
Colorado Springs has been a team that's very recently been in the mix for a title, been serious contenders. They've produced really good players. They score a lot of goals. So I think this signing particularly is going to be scary if you're in the Western Conference, right? I think clearly you're looking at a Colorado Springs team and a San Antonio team and a Phoenix Rising team that could very easily become your best three teams out there. I think San Antonio is obviously the clear number one right now, but Colorado Springs is looking to definitely maintain that, maintain themselves in that conversation to be right under them, right?
Yep, absolutely. One team, though, Carlos, that we do need to keep an eye out on.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit closer to home here. Louisville City are generally looking good again. They look like they are, I don't think that they lost that many players from last season, and now they might be possibly looking even a little stronger. They are just it's another well-run team in the USL Championship, despite the problems with their front office, let's say. But, they can build a roster, and they have done so here. I think that we're gonna have to fight them again for the top. If we make it there, they're going to be the other ones probably on the other side of that.
Yeah. I'm not even gonna mention. I really don't like talking about Louisville. It scares me. I'm just gonna put that to the side. You summarized it well. They're a good team. They could be getting stronger. I think we're in the same boat though, so we'll see what happens there. Moving on, other teams that are kind of in that rebuilding process still, but are a bit harder to read, as you've put it. Your San Diego, your Indy, your Sacramento. Particularly, I think Indy is one to focus on, given how they've stolen a couple of our favorite players recently. These are teams that are definitely out there to, I guess, for Indy and Sacramento, they're bigger teams that you expect to be fighting for championships eventually. San Diego, a little less so, but they're definitely teams that are going to be looking to compete. And we mentioned, I'm not sure, I can't, looking back really quickly, we mentioned a couple signings for one of these teams. But I think these are teams that we're just going to have to wait to see then when they step on the field to see if they're legitimate, or if they're going to have to go through maybe one more year of rebuilding. Indy, I think, is probably the best shout out of these three that we've just mentioned to make a big jump offensively. They have a really, really good front three out of two players that I won't name because it'll make me sad. So they have potential up there. And I'm excited to see what they can do when they're not playing us. But there's definitely some really, really good potential with these teams too.
Absolutely. Another couple of teams that we're just not sure about now. Some of them have done a little bit of rebuilding. Some of them really haven't named that many players to their roster at this point. Pittsburgh Riverhounds, the Miami FC, Memphis, Rio Grande Valley, New Mexico United, and El Paso. I think that these are teams that have built, a base layer to their roster, but it's really not sufficient even at this point. It's kind of like, Carlos, where you and I were a couple of weeks back, where we were like, so hey, are the Rowdies are they gonna sign a forward, or what's the deal here? That's kind of the level that they're at. We have since then signed not only quite a few forwards, but we've signed a couple of other players. And that was before counting all the guys that we're going to go through today. But that is where they still are here at the end of January. Now, I'm certain that all of these teams have people lined up, and whether or not, they actually do have contracts with them, or if they're just, working out the kinks of those contracts and then they'll eventually be announced, I can't say because I do not know. But, I'm just not sure exactly where they're going to end up, because they might be running out of time to actually get the names that they want.
Yeah, it's late in the game too. It really is. We're coming up on February now. Preseason starts relatively soon. There's a couple teams that are already playing. I've seen played a couple scrimmages and whatnot. It's kind of, if you're in these situations, I'd be a little concerned. Thankfully, our team has been kind of quick on the signings in the past couple of weeks. But I think you make a really, really good point that if there's some big names you wanted to go out and get, they're flying off the shelf right now, frankly.
Yes.
So you better be quick with that. And it's going to be unfortunate because there's some teams on here that are at least we're making really big strides. So it'd be unfortunate to see a big drop off from them, particularly your Memphises, your New Mexico, El Paso, teams that have been starting to get up there and compete. So I think it's good for the league if they make a big push here and continue to compete, right?
I think that a good analogy would be thinking of toilet paper before a hurricane.
Sure.
All the good toilet papers are gone, and people are kind of reaching for the paper towels at this point. So
Yeah,
we'll
exactly.
see. We'll see how it turns out. The last team that I wanted to mention for us, this is a team that we will only play one time next year, so it's not going to matter a ton. But Las Vegas just I think this week announced that they were going to have any players or any coaching staff at all. That was just this week. So I wrote shrug emoji, and that's about where I am.
That Las Vegas has to be the biggest anomaly of a team I've ever come across in my life, James. This is just the weirdest run franchise. They play in a really run down field in a baseball stadium in Las Vegas. They had a camel or an alpaca at halftime that one time. I don't know what's going on with them. It's a weird franchise. I hope they keep surviving because they're really, really funny. But I'm not sure this is a team that we're gonna have to worry about competing for a title anytime soon, right?
I just feel bad for their fans at this point because it doesn't even seem like they have a team until they announce finally. Oh, by the way, we do have a coach and 5 or 6 players.
Right. Anyway, James, frankly, I think it's time to move on and talk about the big news, right? The news that I think we've been hinting at for a while. The news that I'm sure all the Rowdies fans really, really want to talk about. And that is all these fun signings we've been talking about. What's going on there, James?
Yeah, so the Rowdies added, let me count it up real fast here, 4 forwards to
Not
our
bad.
attacking core, and we added a goalkeeper. Carlos, I will let you start it off with the first forward that we have named here because it is a big one, and it is somebody that people are going to be so happy to see back.
Yeah, you might be familiar with the name Lucky Mkosana, right? You might have heard of him in
maybe
some sort of last-minute goal or something. I don't know. Long story short, he'll be back for at least another season with your Tampa Bay Rowdies. I mean, he's a guy that you always want coming off the bench, a guy that can really, really put in a good last 20, 30 minutes if you're pushing it. He's a really, really good role player, and he plays that role really well. So lovely, lovely, lovely to have him back. I think we can safely say he's not a full 90-minute player kind of guy, but a fantastic personality, fantastic morale booster to have on the team, and a great veteran in the game. And you definitely, definitely need those guys. And we've been around long enough to, show the team culture to the next guys coming in, to be that locker room personality and to be a really good role player, like I said, in those last 30 to 30 minutes. So really, really big signing for us there, I'm sure. I think there's some even bigger ones to mention in just a second.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Mm-hmm. So one of the other players that we wanted to mention, because he was, one of our signings, and these are obviously all very important. This is Ariel Martinez, another Cuban attacker. So I should say another Cuban, and not as opposed to a Cuban attacker, because the other Cuban that we have on our roster is a goalkeeper. But yeah, Ariel Martinez is a veteran player in this league. Yep. He was with Hartford Athletic last year and bagged what is, I guess, a team-leading 9 goals in their 22 appearances. So he also played with Charleston Battery, FC Tulsa, and this is where I remembered him the most from, Carlos, the Miami FC. I remember him being a bit of a thorn in our side in the past because he is a player who I don't want to make the comparison immediately because people are going to listen to me and go like, what the hell are you talking about? But give me 2 seconds to explain it. Older guy, doesn't do a ton of running, kind of sits in the midfield, and then when he gets the ball, you're like, oh my God, how did he get the ball? What's he going to do with it? Little tiny bit like Lionel Messi for Argentina in this past World Cup.
That's fair.
Am I out of bounds with that?
I think people will just jump at any comparison with Lionel Messi. I think to re-explain what you're trying to say is his style of play kind of reminds you of that, as opposed to, I think just any comparison with Messi is going to get people a little fired up. Yeah. But I understand where you're coming from. And another great signing, I think, if you've been listening to this podcast at all in recent weeks, you've heard me beg for a veteran striker. You've heard me beg for a striker at all, firstly, right? And then when we got some of those, your JJ Williams and whatnot, you've heard me ask for a veteran striker, a proven goal scorer. Frankly, this might be a little more veteran than I thought we would go for, right, James?
I think that's fair.
Ariel Martinez, 36 years old. Definitely we can say on the back end of his career, but a guy who definitely seems to be on a mission. If you saw that video of him, kind of like the introduction video to all the Rowdies been putting out for all the players, he seems like he's here for a reason. He's not just trying to end his career at, some random team and quietly fade away. He wants to win the championship. And I mean, again, if you look at this past season with Hartford, he's a guy that, was, I guess, 35 at that time, 36 still, and played lots of minutes, right? So he's in really, really good shape. He's not a role player. He's definitely not a last, 10 minutes kind of guy. He might be coming off the bench for us, but who knows? I mean, there's so many different options now that Neil Collins has that Ariel Martinez could be really whatever Neil Collins needs him to be, whether it's a last 10 minutes, last 20 minutes kind of guy, a starter, who knows? He's a guy that can put the ball in the back of the net, and that's all that really matters, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's move on, Carlos. If you could walk us through the next name, I think that people might not know the name immediately, but they're going to get hyped when we talk about it.
This might have been the most out of left field signing of the offseason, right? The Rowdies signed none other than the name you've been waiting to hear, Felix Schröter, a German forward who's coming over to us from the Norwegian league. Felix Schröter had 11 goals in his last 27 games with FK Jerv, who in 2 seasons ago, he helped promote them to the first division. They were recently relegated, but he still scored, I believe, I'm forgetting, 11 goals across both those 2 seasons in 27 games. The fact that he was scoring any goals at all on a team that produced so little, I think, is indicative of his quality. Based on what I saw, he's a guy that can create chances by himself if he needs to. Frankly, I don't think he'll have to do that because he'll have a lot of support down here, a lot of really great complementing players. I think he can be a guy that scores a lot of goals for us. I mean, again, that being said, I know very little about him. I have no clue how he got linked with the Rowdies. Anybody's guess would be as good as mine. We don't have anybody out in Norway that I'm familiar with. But I don't know, man. Felix Schröter looks like a really exciting player. He has good size. He has good speed. He can finish with both feet. So we could be looking at a really, really good talent here. I kind of get excited when I see some players like this that come out of left field because it kind of changes the market a bit. It proves that we're not just kind of sitting around the USL waiting for somebody to come out because there's a whole world of talented soccer players out there, right?
Exactly.
And it's really exciting to see us take a step and take a chance on a guy like him, right? A guy whose team, frankly, got relegated this past season again, just to reemphasize that. But a guy that they see some talent in and a guy I think can be productive for us. Yeah.
I think that based on transfers back and forth, the Norwegian top division is relatively on par with MLS's lower teams. So, you think of, I don't know, maybe your Chicago Fires, your, not LAFC, but your LA Galaxies, let's say. They are, it's not the best league. It's not the worst league either.
It's competitive.
As you said, he got them promoted to that elite division. And then from there, they were relegated. But in that season, he led them in scoring. So you have to take all of that into consideration. And frankly, I think that all of that being put together makes for a pretty damn good signing. So, like you said, it also is exciting just that they are looking abroad because, USL Championship has a lot of talented players. But my God, you could probably find MLS level quality in Thailand, Australia. You go all the way through Africa. I'm sure there's a ton of talent. There's plenty out there. And if we're looking abroad, that can only mean good things for us as an organization. So I'm good with it. I'm good with it.
I'm fantastic with it. Are you kidding me? I would really, really love to pick the front office's brain and see how we made this link, because that's fascinating to me, really. I couldn't. I've been doing my own just that meme from It's Always Sunny where they have that wall and he's I forgot the character, but he's pinning together all the stuff. He looks like a psychopath. That's kind of what I was trying to do, is just trying to pin all of our recent players and coaches and stuff.
Who knows Felix Schröter?
Yeah. How did we connect to a German striker, Felix Schröter? I've recently promoted and then recently relegated FK Jerv in Norway. That is so psychotic to me, and I love it. That's what this is all about. That's what the USL is all about. A little bit of psychosis, a little bit of fun, and a little bit of signing German forward Felix Schröter. He's going to be awesome. I really do think he's going to be good for us. It's just based off what I've seen, the highlights, the Neil Collins quotes. It seems like he can finish with both feet. And I think that's what we need more than anything is somebody. We can create a lot of chances. But if you recall last season, we had infinite amount of chances that we just kind of left at the doorstep, whether it's some poor quality finishing, post, goalie makes a good save. This is really, really good. And I think Felix Schröter could be that guy for us.
I think that should be the tagline for this episode. Eureka, if you can include a little bit of psychosis, a little bit of fun, I think that's going to be a good description of not only this episode, but like you said, the USL overall. That would be good.
It's psychotic. It's crazy. How did we get this guy? I don't know.
We will probably never know, but we will certainly ask. I'll tell the listeners that much.
Yeah, this is awesome. I love this.
The next signing we have to announce is Cal Jennings. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the name Cal Jennings, where have you been in the USL Championship? Cal Jennings is from UCF originally. He went to college there, did very well in the NCAA level. And from there, he was drafted to MLS, didn't quite make the level, although he's been up and down. He's kind of one of those yo-yo players. He's been on an MLS roster and sent on loan to USL. On an MLS roster, sent on loan to USL. So every time he does that, he usually does very well in USL, can't quite make it on the MLS team. And then you're like, well, what the hell? What's the difference? And, I don't know if the difference is quality. Maybe it is so much as selection, in my opinion. But if you sign him in the USL Championship, you're getting goals. And I am so excited that he is going to be in the Tampa Bay Rowdies. I really, this is a swinging for the fences signing. I am very excited for this.
Yeah, this one's really, really fun. I think I don't know. He's one of those guys that I've heard of before, but if you're not like a sicko and constantly following the USL, then this name might have slipped by you because he was playing for, a Las Vegas kind of team, right? Or not kind of team. He was playing over there. And it's hard to get noticed like that. But that being said, he quietly, I think, became one of the most exciting prospects in the league. He's really, really fun to watch. I want to say, let me find the tweet. I thought this was a really, really important stat. But yeah. I think Nicholas Murray was the one that tweeted this and it was retweeted by the Rowdies. He has the best goals plus assists per 90-minute rate in the USL Championship over the past 3 regular seasons. That's definitely not something to just throw away, right? He scores a lot of goals, but he's creating a lot of chances as well. I think that's really, really important because, again, he was playing for a Las Vegas team that couldn't do a lot, and yet he was creating those chances, sometimes single-handedly. I think similarly to Felix Schröter, this is a guy that can be put in a really, really fruitful situation with his teammates around him, with the quality of guys we have around him, with a really good midfield that we've built. I think the sky's the limit right now. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think we've built on paper I don't know how they do it. We built on paper one of the best rosters in the league, if not the best roster in the league. This is really, really exciting. And Cal Jennings is probably, I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's probably the biggest signing we made this offseason. Maybe you have your Forrest Lasso again, though. That signing was huge too, quite literally. But I think this is a really, really good contender for that title. Cal Jennings is going to be huge for us this season.
Yeah, I can only concur. The last player that the Rowdies have signed so far this week, it's not the end of the week, so who knows, Carlos? We might see something tomorrow. But the last player so far is Phil Breno. Do you remember Phil Breno, Carlos? I feel like he did a couple of good things for us in the past. Maybe this is a name that people have forgotten.
It is kind of crazy that he had I don't know. I forget how many appearances he made with us. It wasn't a lot.
No.
But it was very obviously enough to make a lasting impression on this fan base and on this team. It's the first time in a few years that we've signed a third goalie, right? So I think we can confidently say that Connor Sparrow is going to be our starting guy. I don't know if that's too early to say, but Connor Sparrow was just an elite goalie last year for Miami. But Phil Breno and Raiko Rosarena are just incredible guys to flank him. And it's going to be a really good competition, I'm sure, at practices. yeah, Phil Breno, really, really fun guy to have back. That being said, who knows how much we'll see him on the field? Maybe not much, maybe not at all. Maybe U.S. Open Cup type games. But Phil Breno is going to be a great personality to have back no matter what. And it's really, really good story, if anything, if nothing else, to have him back on this team.
He was literally one of the heroes of the season last year. He came in when CJ Cochran went down with an injury, of course.
Yeah.
And we were all worried because Raiko Rosarena had a rough time, and then so they sent him on loan. Phil Breno was the only guy that we had who was still on the roster that could play in net, competently. And he came in and he made some incredible saves. He kept us in playoff contention. He kept us going through playoff games. He made at least one penalty save in the playoffs, if I'm not forgetting any others. But he did all that, and he was a great story. I remember that he made that penalty save and helped us win on I believe it was the anniversary of his either grandfather's birthday or his passing, and he said in the end he said that he knew his grandfather was watching him as he was tearing up at this win. It was just like, God, that is some Rowdies lore.
It was a story, right?
Yeah. My God. I mean,
you couldn't have written it better than that. And it was really, really exciting to have him. So I think we're very blessed to have him back. If nothing else for that story and for that legend. And I hope he can get more playing time. I'm sure he's like, let's not put it. I mean, I've been touting a lot on this story. I'm not going to, put it past though, that he's a really good goalie as well. Like he had really, really good games. He stepped up really, really well. The talent's there. And again, he's going to give really good competition to Connor Sparrow and to Raiko Rosarena. I think we're going to have a really, really good trio there of goalies. Early prediction, I think one of them is going to go out on loan. I think 3 goalies is a lot, but we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, well, it did happen last year, so it wouldn't be the first time, certainly. That will do it for the Rowdy signings, but we have 2 more bits of news here in our Extra Time segment. Carlos, this first one goes to you. Yeah.
Just a quick note here. I think it's a really, really fun tournament, and I think everybody should tune in if you have a chance. The U20 South American Championships are still ongoing. Actually, I think Ecuador might have just recently, like literally 6 minutes ago, kicked off against Venezuela. In the early stages still, it's still a group stage. If you're not familiar with it, this is one of the only like official international tournaments in the world that doesn't have an official knockout stage. Interestingly enough, the top 3 teams of each group move on to a final 6, and the final 6 play in a round robin style tournament where the champion and then the next 2 teams qualify to the U20 World Cup. So it's a really interesting way of doing things that they do it for this tournament. Really unique, and it adds a really kind of level playing field for all the teams. So it's really, really fun to watch. It's really exciting because every game means the same. Every game means a lot, and every game is going to feel like a final. So I definitely recommend tuning in if you can find a creative way of doing so. There's tons of ways to do that, but I won't mention them here.
Creativity is key.
Correct.
All right. The last one is last night, the U.S. men's national team played one of their friendlies. We talked about this before, how the U.S. women's national team had some friendlies coming up. Those came in 2 wins over New Zealand, while the U.S. men's national team played their first friendly last night against Serbia. It was a 2-1 loss, but honestly, this camp in January is often called Camp Cupcake, and it is for the players who are not, regularly in the national team. It is actually for the players who might want to break into the national team, usually from the youth national team. So a 2-1 loss doesn't mean anything. In all honesty, this is a chance for players to just try and show that they are worthy of getting into the senior national team. Other than that, it really doesn't mean anything. I'm happy that Brandon Vasquez scored on his debut, and otherwise, we'll just see who makes it out of the January camp and into the regular camps. That's pretty much what this is for.
Yeah, if you've been following the U.S. men's national team at all, though, every sort of anything that goes wrong at all feels like just the end of the world right now. There's so many crazy storylines out there that we could spend literally hours talking about, whether it's Gio Reyna, whether it's Berhalter and the whole blackmail stuff, and Gio Reyna's parents getting involved like it's a youth soccer team. It's crazy. It literally is crazy. It feels like I don't know. I don't even know what it feels like. It feels like a movie, like a comedy. It's crazy.
It's going to be a movie someday. That much I will say.
Be. It should be, right? It's funny to watch. It's funny to keep up with, unfortunately. But at least it's mildly entertaining on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. If the U.S. men's national team ends up with a better coach out of it, then I will not complain. But yeah, that will do it tonight for us. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. We obviously always appreciate it, even during this off season when, you think there's actually not a lot going on. There is. Look at how much time we filled in tonight.
We just spent an hour talking about, random signings that are going to be huge, and then just insanely awesome signings for us that are going to be even bigger. I'm so excited, James. I really cannot wait. In a couple, I think, next weekend I'll be back home for my mom's 50th birthday. And I'm going to see if, I don't know, I'm going to go out there and see. Hopefully they started practicing so I can go scout them out on Waters Avenue, do my little research there next to the Wawa. We'll see what we can do there. I'm just so excited. I want to get any sort of Rowdies content, Rowdies like brain stimulation I can right now. I'm seeing so many awesome signings. I'm really, really excited to see how this starts to gel together into one complete picture.
Same. Absolutely the same. So please follow us if you would like to keep up with this content. You can do so at RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter. I am at RBLR James K. Carlos, what about you?
At Carlos TPA10 on Twitter. If you followed me in the past few days, you'll see me freaking out about the fact that Georgetown basketball won a conference game for the first time in like 680 days. It's not an exaggeration. We've won a conference game, and it feels fantastic to see that for the first time as a student, believe it or not. This is great. So I've been freaking out about that, talking about the Rowdies, all the usual on Carlos TPA10 on Twitter.
There you go. And please like and subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, Apple and Google Podcasts, YouTube, and all other major podcast platforms. Wherever you are, we are too. And for another week in the bag, come on, you Rowdies.
We're going to win the USL Championship.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.